The research on workforce shortages made clear that shortages are driven by structural issues, that is, birth rates, aging, and low in-migration. Current efforts to address skill gaps and do more with existing populations are important, but insufficient to meet the shortages on the horizon. More specifically, Wisconsin is facing 6 major structural challenges, including a shrinking workforce population, underscored by this overly optimistic chart from the state's 2014 Talent Development Strategic Plan, which indicates that as early as 2012, officials were projecting significant worker shortages by 2020. These shortages are driven by a birth rate that has declined every year for a half a century and is currently projected to remain flat for at least the next 25 years, all of which led to a steadily declining workforce replacement rate and what is now the lowest replacement rate in 30 years. Wisconsin's second major challenge is that it has been unable to offset its declining population numbers with workers from outside the state, consistently ranking in the bottom fifth of the states in terms of in-migration. Adding to the lack of workers coming into the state, between 1990 and 2015, Wisconsin experienced a net out-migration of more than 80,000 young workers. The state did experience a slight uptick in in-migration in 2017 and 2018, but still began 2019 more than 110,000 workers short of the official projected 2020 need. And one element of the out-migration, the loss of thousands of college graduates, was particularly troubling because that loss paralleled an actual decline in the state's 35 to 54-year-old experienced worker population. The fourth structural challenge has been the marked slowing of the immigration rates into the state that has particularly affected employers in agriculture and manufacturing. The fifth major structural issue, a growing portion of our general and workforce population being 65 and older, is perhaps the most visible and acknowledged challenge. But it is worth noting 2 things about Wisconsin's aging population. First, it is growing very rapidly. And second, as the workforce becomes more urban and suburban and young people leave for jobs, the impact of an aging workforce is hitting rural areas hardest. Lastly, we need to recognize that workforce shortages generate public and private sector revenue shortages that affect Wisconsin's ability to deliver public services, sustain the sorts of communities we need to compete for workers now and in the future. If, for example, the 2014 projection that we will be short 46,000 workers in 2022 actually occurs, it would result in a loss of more than $2 billion in income and a loss that year of $181 million in income and property taxes. A Pew Foundation study projects a loss in Wisconsin of some 118,000 20 to 54-year-olds by 2040. If that were to happen, the tax loss for that year would come close to $500 million. And keep in mind, this threat looms over the state at a time when a larger and larger share of the federal dollars for states and local governments are being claimed by healthcare costs. All of which makes clear that it is impossible to look at the current demand for workers in Wisconsin and the decline in birth rates and conclude that the state can meet its workforce needs without recruiting new residential workers.